She slapped her. The sound cracked across the marble hallway like a gunshot. Everyone froze. Trays stopped moving. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the pianist downstairs missed a note. Clara Whitmore stood in the center of the engagement reception, her hand still raised in the air, her diamond ring catching the chandelier light like a blade. "Don't touch me," she snapped. Across from her stood the maid.
You ruined the most
small,
important night
quiet,
of my life,
still holding
and you
a silver
can't even
tray.
keep the
Her
champagne
name
flowing!
tag read Lena, and she hadn't moved. "I said," Clara repeated louder, her voice trembling with anger now that the room had turned to watch her. "Don't touch me." "I didn't touch you, Mom," Lena replied softly. Clara laughed sharply. "Oh, really?" She stepped forward. "Then what do you call that?" "You were falling," Lena said gently. "I only tried to—" Before she could finish, Clara shoved her, hard. The tray crashed to the floor, glasses shattered everywhere, gasps
I want
rippled
everyone
through
to
the
know
guests.
exactly what kind of
"Stay in
person
your
she
place,"
is.
Clara said coldly, and that was when the deep voice cut through the room like thunder. "Don't touch her again." Everyone turned. At the top of the staircase stood Adrien Vale, billionaire, host of the night, and Clara's fiancé. Except he wasn't looking at Clara, he was looking at the maid. No, he was looking at Lena. His eyes weren't angry. They were something worse, protective. Clara blinked. "Adrien," she laughed nervously. "Did you just—" "I said," he repeated slowly as he walked down the stairs, each step echoing in the silent hall, "don't touch her again." The room held its breath. Clara forced a smile. "Adrien, she dropped the tray on me." "She caught you before you slipped," Adrien replied. His voice was calm, too calm. "And you pushed her." Clara's smile cracked. "She's staff. And she's under my protection." The sentence landed heavier than anyone expected. Whispers started immediately. Guests leaned toward each other. Did he just say protection? Protection. Over a maid. Clara's face flushed red. "You're embarrassing me," she whispered sharply. "No," Adrien said quietly. "You embarrassed yourself." The silence turned electric.
Stop right there, you
Lena
deceitful
bent
little
down
liar.
quickly
Did you
to collect
really
the
think you
broken
could just
glass.
walk away?
"I'm sorry, sir," she murmured. "It was my
suggest
fault."
you watch your tone, Clara.
Adrien stepped forward immediately. "Stop." She froze. "You're bleeding." Only then did everyone see it, a thin red line across her palm. Clara crossed her arms. "Oh, it's just a scratch." Adrien didn't even look at her. He took Lena's hand gently, too gently. "Bring the medical kit," he told the manager without taking his eyes off her. Guests were staring openly now. Someone whispered loudly enough to be heard. "Why does he care so much?" Clara heard it, and something dark flashed behind her eyes. "Adrien," she said carefully, forcing control into her voice, "it's our engagement party." "Yes," he replied calmly, "and she's injured." Clara stepped closer. "She's a maid, and she's human." The words cut sharper than the slap had. If you're already wondering why Adrien reacted like that, keep watching, because what everyone thought they understood about Lena that night was completely wrong. Clara laughed suddenly, sharp, cold. "Oh, I see." She stepped closer to Lena now, slowly. Dangerously. "So this is why you're always near him?" Lena's fingers tightened around the broken tray pieces. "I don't understand what you mean." "You understand perfectly," Clara snapped. Guests leaned closer. They could feel something coming, something ugly. "You walk too quietly," Clara continued. "You stay too late. You appear wherever he is." "That's my job." "No," Clara said. "That's your strategy." Adrien's voice dropped lower. "Clara." But she ignored him. "You think I don't notice," she continued. "Girls like you always try this." Lena's voice trembled slightly. "I'm not trying anything." Clara leaned closer. "Then why does he remember your name?" The question landed like a stone in water. Ripples everywhere. Even the staff stopped moving. Even Adrien's jaw tightened slightly. Lena swallowed. I don't know." Clara turned slowly toward Adrien. "Well?" He didn't answer immediately, and that silence made everything worse. "I asked you something," Clara pressed. "I remember all my employees' names," Adrien said finally, but nobody believed that. Not the guests, not the staff, and definitely not Clara. "You don't," she whispered. Then she turned back toward Lena again. Her voice dropped. Low, threatening. You've been here 3 months. Lena nodded quietly. And already he protects you like this? I didn't ask him to. Clara smiled again. This time it looked dangerous. You didn't have to. Adrien stepped between them suddenly. That's enough. Clara stared at him. No, she said softly. It isn't. She pointed at Lena. She's manipulating you. Lena shook her head quickly. I would never… Stop talking. The command snapped through the room. But it hadn't come from Clara. It came from Adrien. Everyone froze again. He wasn't looking at Clara. He wasn't looking at the guests. He was looking straight at Lena. And something in his expression changed. Something softer. Something older. Go upstairs, he told her quietly. I'll handle this. Clara blinked. Handle what? Adrien didn't answer her. Instead, he turned to the manager. Escort her to the east wing. Yes, sir. The manager rushed forward immediately. Clara stepped in front of Lena's path. No. The room tightened again. No one is going anywhere until someone explains what's happening. Her voice shook now, not from anger, from fear. Adrien's expression hardened slightly. Oh, you're making a scene. This is my engagement party, and you're ruining it. The sentence hit harder than the slap earlier. Clara stared at him like she didn't recognize him anymore. Over her? Yes. One word. Quiet. Certain. And everything changed. If you think Clara was shocked, wait until you find out why Adrien really said that. Because the truth about Lena wasn't just unexpected. It was dangerous. Very dangerous. Clara stepped closer again. You knew her before tonight. It wasn't a question. Adrien didn't respond. You did, she whispered. Still silence, her voice cracked. Adrien, tell me you didn't. Guests leaned forward again. Even the pianist stopped pretending to play. I met her before, Adrien said finally. The room exploded into whispers. Clara's face turned pale. But where? Adrien hesitated, only for a second, but everyone noticed. Years ago. Years. The word echoed. Years. Clara laughed suddenly, too loudly, too quickly. That's impossible. It isn't, her voice dropped. Then why didn't you tell me? Adrien looked at Lena, still standing quietly near the staircase, still bleeding slightly from her palm, still silent. Because it wasn't time yet. And that was when Clara understood something terrible, something she hadn't expected, something that made her stomach drop. He hadn't forgotten Lena. He had been waiting for her. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Waiting? The word sounded wrong coming from her own mouth. You were waiting for her? Adrien didn't answer immediately. That silence told her everything she didn't want to know. And the guests were no longer pretending not to listen. Someone whispered near the staircase. Did he just say years? Clara turned sharply toward Lena again. What exactly did you do to him? I didn't do anything, Lena said quietly. Stop pretending, Clara snapped. Her voice cracked now. Not elegant anymore, not controlled anymore, just scared. Adrien stepped forward again. That's enough. No, Clara said. Her eyes were shining now. You don't get to shut me up in my own engagement party. The word engagement echoed between them like something fragile about to break. You owe me an explanation. Adrien looked at her carefully. I do. The guests leaned even closer. But not here, he finished. Clara laughed again, short, sharp. You think I'm letting her walk upstairs while everyone here watches you defend her like she matters more than me? Adrien didn't answer, and that silence felt louder than shouting. Clara turned slowly toward Lena again. You're not going anywhere. Lena froze. I'm just staff, she said quietly. Yes, Clara replied, and that's exactly why you stay right here. Adrien's voice dropped lower. Clara. But she ignored him again. You said you met her years ago, Clara continued, so tell us. She looked around at the guests deliberately. Tell everyone. Adrien's jaw tightened. This isn't a show. Oh, it is now, Clara said, because you just humiliated me in front of 200 people. The words hung heavy in the air. 200 witnesses, 200 questions. 200 whispers waiting to happen tomorrow morning. Lena shifted slightly. I should go. No, Clara repeated instantly. You should stay. Her voice softened suddenly, too suddenly. Unless you're hiding something. Lena looked at Adrien, just once. It was quick, almost invisible, but Clara saw it, and that look made something inside her chest twist painfully. You see that? She said quietly. She looks at you like she knows you. Adrien stepped forward again. She does. The room went silent again. Clara blinked slowly. How? Adrien didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Lena. Tell her, he said gently. Lena shook her head instantly. No. Yes. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the broken tray she was still holding. They don't need to know. They do, Adrien said. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. Know what? Lena swallowed. Her voice came out softer than before. I worked at St. Maro Hospital. The name meant nothing to most guests, but Adrien's expression changed slightly. Clara noticed immediately. And? Clara asked. And 3 years ago, Lena continued quietly, there was an accident. The guests leaned closer again. What accident? Clara asked. Lena hesitated. Adrien answered instead. My accident. The sentence hit the room like thunder. Clara turned sharply toward him. You told me that driver died instantly. He did. And you said there was no one else involved. There wasn't, Adrien replied calmly. Clara looked back at Lena slowly, then back at Adrien, then back at Lena again. Her voice trembled. Oh, she was there? Yes. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything before it. Clara's chest tightened. She treated you. Lena shook her head slightly. No. I stayed with him, she said softly. Clara frowned. What does that mean? Adrien answered again. It means everyone else left. The sentence sounded simple, but it didn't feel simple. What do you mean everyone else left? Clara asked. The hospital was overcrowded, Adrien said. They thought I wouldn't survive the night. The room felt colder suddenly. And she stayed? Clara asked slowly. Yes. For how long? Clara pressed. Adrien didn't hesitate this time. 32 hours. The guests exchanged looks again. 32 hours. Clara's voice came out smaller now. She's a nurse. No, Lena said quietly. I was cleaning staff. The room shifted again. Cleaning staff. Clara blinked. You're saying... She wasn't assigned to me, Adrien continued. She wasn't required to be there. She just stayed. Why? Clara whispered. Lena looked down at the floor. I didn't think anyone should be alone. Something inside the room changed. Even the guests who had been whispering earlier stopped moving. Clara stared at her. You expect me to believe that? I didn't know who he was, Lena said quietly. I didn't know his name. Adrien nodded slightly. She didn't. Clara shook her head. No. No. Her voice rose again. This is ridiculous. She turned toward Adrien sharply. You're telling me you've been protecting her because she sat beside your hospital bed? No, Adrien said. I've been protecting her because she saved my life. The words landed heavier than anything before them. Clara's face turned pale again. She didn't save your life. She did. How? Clara demanded. Adrien looked at Lena again, then back at Clara. Because she refused to let them turn off the machines. The room froze completely. Clara's voice barely worked now. They told me you woke up the next morning. They were going to stop treatment that night, Adrien replied, and she stopped them. Clara's hands began shaking slightly. She had no authority. She didn't need authority, Adrien said quietly. She had courage. The silence stretched again. Guests exchanged uneasy looks. Someone whispered near the back of the room. She fought the doctors. Lena shook her head quickly. No. I just asked them to wait. For 32 hours, Clara repeated slowly. Yes. Clara stared at her like she was trying to solve a puzzle she didn't want the answer to. And that's why you kept her here? Yes, Clara's voice dropped again. You hired her because you felt grateful. No. Adrien's answer came immediately. I hired her because I promised her something. Clara blinked again. What promise? Adrien didn't answer right away, and that hesitation scared her more than anything else that night. Because promises meant history. Promises meant connection. Promises meant something she hadn't known about the man she was supposed to marry. And suddenly she realized something much worse. This story between Adrien and Lena wasn't finished yet. It had never been finished. Clara's fingers tightened slowly around the edge of her dress. A promise. The word barely came out. What promise? Adrien didn't answer immediately. He looked at Lena again, not like an employer, not like someone grateful, like someone remembering something important, something unfinished. I promised her, he said finally, that if I survived, I would find her again. The room went silent. Clara's voice shook. You searched for her? Yes. For 3 years? Yes. The guests were no longer whispering. They were staring openly now. Clara let out a slow breath. So you hired her? No, Adrien said calmly. I found her. The sentence landed harder than expected. Clara laughed weakly. And what exactly did you plan to do after you found her? Adrien didn't respond immediately. That hesitation answered everything. Clara stepped back slightly. You weren't just grateful. No. The truth sounded simple, but it changed everything. What were you then? Clara asked quietly. Adrien looked at Lena again. His voice softened. I was alive because of her. Lena's eyes widened slightly. Sir, Adrien, he corrected gently. The room reacted instantly. Clara froze. You let her call you Adrien? I asked her to. Clara's voice cracked. In front of everyone? In front of the truth. Something inside Clara finally broke. You're choosing her. No, Adrien replied calmly. I'm telling the truth. That is choosing her. The words echoed loudly through the hall. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the piano whispered, This engagement is over. Clara heard it. Everyone heard it. No, she said quickly. No. She stepped closer to Adrien again. You're confused. I'm not. You're emotional. I'm clear. You're grateful. I'm honest. Each answer came faster, stronger, final. Clara turned toward Lena suddenly. You planned this. I didn't, Lena said quietly. You followed him. No. You stayed close to him. No. You wanted this. No. Each denial sounded smaller than the last accusation. Clara's voice rose again. You think I didn't see how he looks at you? Silence, because everyone had seen it now. Everyone. Even Adrien didn't deny it. Clara's voice dropped again. Dangerous. So what are you to him? Lena swallowed. I'm nothing. Adrien stepped forward immediately. You're not nothing. The words changed the air again. Clara laughed bitterly. Oh, now she's something. Yes, Clara stared at him. More than me? Adrien didn't answer immediately, and that silence became the loudest answer of the night. Clara stepped back slowly. Her voice barely worked now. You were going to marry me. I know. You proposed to me. I know. You chose me. Adrien looked at her carefully. I thought I did. The sentence broke the room. Even the guests stopped pretending to breathe normally. Clara's hands began shaking again. You thought? I didn't understand something then. What? She whispered. Adrien looked at Lena again. I didn't understand why I couldn't forget her. The truth settled heavily across the room. Clara closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. So what happens now? Adrien didn't hesitate this time. We stop pretending. The engagement ring on Clara's finger suddenly looked heavier than before. Guests watched closely, very closely. Slowly, carefully, Clara removed it. The diamond flashed once under the chandelier light. Then she placed it into Adrien's hand. No, she whispered. You stop pretending. Her voice shook again. But I stop hoping. The room stayed silent as she turned and walked past the guests. No one stopped her. No one spoke. Even the pianist stayed still. The front doors closed behind her softly. And just like that, the engagement ended. No announcement, no argument. Just truth. Adrien stood still for a long moment. Then he turned toward Lena. She looked terrified. I didn't want this, she said quietly. I know. She's hurt because of me. No. She's hurt because of me staying. No. She's hurt because you chose me. Yes. The honesty surprised even Lena. I didn't choose you, she whispered. You did, Adrien replied gently. You stayed 32 hours beside someone you didn't even know. That was different. No. That was kindness. Yes. That wasn't love. Adrien stepped closer. It was the beginning of it. The room felt quieter than ever. Guests didn't leave. They watched, because they understood something important was happening. Something rare. Something real. Lena's voice trembled again. You don't even know me. I know enough. No. You stayed when everyone else walked away. That's not enough. It is for me. Silence stretched between them again. Then Adrien said something no one expected. I looked for you for 3 years. Lena's eyes widened. I visited that hospital 6 times. The guests reacted quietly again. I asked every department. I checked every shift record. I followed every lead. Lena's voice barely came out. Why? Adrien smiled slightly. Because I woke up alive. And the first thing I wanted to do, he stepped closer, was find the person who refused to let me disappear. Tears filled Lena's eyes instantly. I didn't do anything special. You did everything. The room held its breath again. Adrien reached for her injured hand carefully, still gentle, still protective, still certain. You stayed. Yes. You believed I would survive. Yes. You waited. Yes. He smiled again. So now it's my turn. To wait for what? She whispered. For you. The sentence landed softly, but it changed everything. If you've stayed with this story until now, you already understand something most people in that room didn't understand that night. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is carrying the strongest story. Sometimes loyalty matters more than status, and sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives patiently. If this story touched you even a little, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Stories like this remind us that real connections don't always follow expectations. Comment below and tell me honestly, was Adrien right to choose Lena? And don't forget to like the video if you believe kindness always comes back when we least expect it.